Hello students, this is Madina Toktakhadraeva, and in this video lesson we'll talk about the purpose and function of a communication, and I do really hope that you will find this lesson very interesting and informative. Well, as long as we're talking about the purpose and function, so first thing that we will touch today will be the communication. What is that so far? Why do we need it for? And etc. And then we will talk about the purpose of a communication, and afterwards we will talk about the function of a communication, and then the difference between them. And after talking the difference between these two, we will have some practical part where we'll have to have some practice of identifying the purpose and function. And I do really hope that you will find this very useful as well. And at the end of the lesson, I will give you some of the ways to improve your communication skills, which is very important. And as I've already mentioned before talking about the purpose and function of a communication, first thing that we have to talk about is the what is the communication so far. And I think any advanced learners know that the communication is two-way process. And this is the difference between talk and communication. So we know that whenever we communicate, we have speaker and the listener. And whoever listen to us will do their best to understand us. But whenever we talk, to some extent, this is one-way process when we care about the way we talk only. But in most of the cases, we never care about the listener, whether they understand us or not. This is the difference between talk and communication. And the reason why we have to know the communication is that to have a good personal and professional relationships. This is very important both in our work life, family life. It's important everywhere. And one thing that why we are talking about this all so far is that this is important to take any sort of speaking test, whether this is IELTS test, TOEFL test, or CFR. Well, and whatever you take, that one thing that you have to know that in order to get 8 plus, you do have to understand the purpose and function of a communication. And so this is what we are going to talk about today. And if we start speaking about the purpose of a communication, then we know that first of all, purpose and function are two related aspects of communication. And purpose is concerned with what a speaker is trying to achieve through the utterance. And we know that there are so many, actually, a huge number of different purposes. Like, for instance, it might be to persuade, to request, to seek clarification, to request for an action. Well, it might be anything actually in the world. And another thing that we have to keep in mind is that we know that a speaker may explicitly state what they want. And this is fantastic whenever people express themselves explicitly, just because we know what they really want to know. But there are so many cases when people start expressing themselves through implications. I mean, implying through what they say and how they say it. So that's why this is something that we have to keep in mind. When we speak about the implications, one example that I can give you right now, it might be, for instance, if we see a person who complains a lot, this might be sort of request for an action. And this is the implication, and this is something that you have to know if you want to understand the purpose of a communication. And if we start speaking about the function of a communication, though, then we know that this is something very similar. But the difference between these two is that the function of a communication refers to the, well, if purpose of the communication refers to the speaker, though then function of a communication refers to the speaker's text. So this is more about the text itself. And as an example here, we can give you, for instance, radio advertisement. If we hear the radio advertisement, the function of a radio advertisement here is to inform you about the product or anything stuff like that, about the service. But at the same time, it can also persuade you to buy it. It means that this text function combines two functions. So this is another thing that we have to keep in mind whenever we try to understand the function of a communication. And So I hope this information was sort of clear. And now, in order to understand it a bit better, let's have our practical part where we will have to um, listen a number of monologues and where you will have to decide what type of text each monologue is. So first, here we have some options. First, you will have to listen audio monologue number one, and then you will have to identify whether the A or B answer is the right one. Okay, let's listen.
1. Some may think the history of journalism spans several centuries, perhaps even millennia. But journalism as we know it today found its footing around the 17th to 18th centuries, when newspapers were first printed.
So, what do you think? What type of text it was? Whether it was business speech or university lecture? So if you chose the answer B, then you were absolutely right. So this was the university lecture. So now let's listen another monologue where you will have to again identify what type of text this monologue is. Okay? So let's listen.
Two valuable early 20th century paintings were looted from the city's Museum of Modern Art today. The heist occurred at 5:09 a.m., and police are on the lookout for as many as 4 culprits believed to be involved in the operation.
So, what do you think? Whether A or B is the right one? News report or museum lecture? So the right answer was the news report actually. So as long as you see from the content. So now in order to improve our listening skills, we will have to do another activity where you will have to you will have to first listen the same audio, but here you will have to identify the purpose of a communication, and you will be given different options. So after hearing the monologue number one and two, you will have to identify what is the purpose of a communication. So let's listen once again to our audio number one.
1. Some may think the history of journalism spans several centuries, perhaps even millennia. But journalism as we know it today found its footing around the 17th to 18th centuries, when newspapers were first printed.
So, well, I think this is the second time you are listening to this audio. I think it's obvious, yes? So, the purpose of this audio is to educate people, as long as this is the university lecture. So, now let's listen the second audio, and we will have to identify what's the purpose of it.
Two valuable early 20th century paintings were looted from the city's Museum of Modern Art today. The heist occurred at 5:09 a.m., and police are on the lookout for as many as 4 culprits believed to be involved in the operation.
So, of course, as long as this was the sort of something relating to police information, so this is, of course, a report of an event, actually. I know it might be challenging a bit first, but I know that we are what we practice. And I know that with practice, we can, well, I don't know, change everything we want. So that's why if you really want to improve your listening and speaking, and if you want to be advanced learner of any foreign languages, then just keep listening and keep speaking as well. So, and as I promised, at the end of the this video lesson, I told you that I will tell you some of the ways how you can improve your communication skills. And from my own experience, I know that active active speaking helps us a lot. But as long as we are talking about the purpose and function of a communication, so here I strongly recommend you to active listening, which means that as many times you listen and analyze different sort of things, I'm sure that you will be very advanced in these sort of things, and you can easily identify what the person you are talking to wants from you. And another thing that I can recommend you, yes, in order to develop your communication skills, is to think before you speak, which means that well-formulated speech is something really brilliant and will definitely help you. So if you keep practicing these things, I'm sure that it will be not difficult to achieve 8 plus from any IELTS test or TOEFL or CEFR tests. Well, that's all for today, and this was Madina Tuktakhadraeva, and I do really hope that you find this video very interesting and informative as well. Bye bye, students.